Welcome back to our channel, ladies and gentlemen. A ruling that was made by the High Court Judge Enoch Chachamwita that Kenya has got no capacity to take 1,000 policemen to Haiti was discussed at the US Congress, and it is one of the bases that could deny William Ruto over 40 million US dollars that Ruto really needed for the Haiti mission. It is recorded that according to the reports, the halt of the funding has been instigated by the chairperson of the House of Representatives alongside a top Republican on Senate Foreign Relations, who have both halted 40 million US dollars requested by the US State Department. The legislators have told the US administration that they need a lot more details concerning the mission before approving the funds. The lawmakers also faulted President Joe Biden's administration for only issuing them a rough plan to address their inquiries. And now the third one is that they further expressed concerns about whether Kenyan courts would allow the deployment and whether the Kenyan police officers could get to Port-au-Prince. Now that is what is indicated, ladies and gentlemen. The US Congress, led by the Republicans, are questioning three things. One, they want Joe Biden to give them an elaborate information because they're saying that there's scanty details about why Joe Biden needs this money to be approved to go to Kenya. And they're also saying that they have just been given a rough plan. They need, Joe Biden needs to give them a proper plan on how this Haiti mission is going to happen. And then the third one, they're saying they are not sure whether the Kenyan courts will allow their 1,000 policemen to go to Haiti. When I read this report, I was happy. The reason why I was happy, I've always questioned why, when the US Congress voted against taking their security men and women to Haiti, Joe Biden had got no choice but to respect that decision, because it is in their policy that once the Congress voted against something, then you cannot go beyond that. In Kenya, our courts rejected this plan, but William Ruto sole-handedly said that this mission will continue regardless of the court orders. And now the reason I was happy is that US has been following very closely, and they understand that our courts must be respected. And that is why they're saying they're not even sure whether the courts will allow 1,000 policemen to go to Haiti and whether they will be able to land. When William Ruto got into this rushed deal, I call it, he was doing it, number one, to play a good boy to the Western. Because I don't remember, ever since William Ruto got into office, has he denied or declined any request by the US government? He hasn't. All the requests, the LGBTQ, I've spoken about this, the GMO, Haiti mission, sales of our parastatals, is doing everything. We are being dictated by the IMF and the World Bank. We have decided to listen to the West so much that we cannot think for ourselves. And I think we have maintained that if there is a force that helped William Ruto to get to power, was the American force. Meg Whitman has always said that the last election was the freest. Of course, you know that she spent a lot of time in Bomas during tallying and verification of the result. Number two, Ruto was doing this because of the money that has been poured into this project, because the American government had given some amount of money to William Ruto. I understand that this went to training, buying kits and all that, because part of the training that our policemen had to undergo was to learn French for those who don't know French, because in Haiti they speak French, while in Kenya we speak English, maybe Kiswahili. So already there's money that has gone into this project. But why am I saying that there is tension now between the judiciary and the executive arm of the government? Is this: William Ruto himself had come out and complained that there are people who have ganged up to go to court so that they can block Ruto's agenda, including the NHIF, including the housing levy, and this one. And he issued threats to the judges who rule against his agenda and the people who take him to court. In fact, he told them that he would deal with them using the sword that he was given during the inauguration when he was being sworn in as the president of Kenya. As a result of those threats, he has had his way in almost all the court cases. On the housing levy, they went back with it, and recently it was adopted by the Senate. On the NHIF, I think there were certain recommendations, and it was also adopted, and the court ruled that it should take off. And I believe it's because of the threats that he issued, and even vowed that he was not going to obey the court verdicts. Now, the only one that is remaining before him, and this is a stumbling block, a hurdle that is also being created by the court. The court want to deny William Ruto millions of money. And you understand that in every mission that the president ventures into, there is a lot of money in it. You could talk of the Haiti, you can talk of the climate change. You've seen how he's been so much into it. At some point, he declared a holiday that Kenyans should plant trees, so that internationally he has this image as a person who values our climate and all that. Do you think he is going to allow this? The same threats, the same tactic that he used to get his way on the NHIF thing and the housing levy is the same thing that is going to do. Because according to the Congress, there was that in-house obstacle and external obstacle. The in-house was they wanted Joe Biden to furnish them with a more elaborate plan on the Haiti mission. But the external one was whether the Kenyan courts, because they understand that our courts must be respected with their decisions. So what if they say that they are waiting for the Kenyan court to give the final decision before they release this money? What do you think will happen? So that the UN is looking at Kenya, US is looking at Kenya, the Congress is waiting for their decision. And then William Ruto is there staring at a possibility of losing out on this deal. Recently, Ruto told us, he informed us of a conversation between him and Anthony Blinken, head of Secretary of State, and he said that he was briefed about the resignation of Ariel Henry, the former Prime Minister of Haiti, after he was denied landing into that country, and the Haiti head of the gang, Chariza, took over all the sensitive government institutions, released prisoners when he broke into prisons, and he was informed, according to the information that Ruto gave on Twitter, that there is a presidential council that will be established as a makeshift government. After that, he promised that he would take 1,000 soldiers there. So this mission was only halted. Of course, others thought that this was a kind of he wanted to chicken out in a way that he would not be seen as a coward. But from the way things are going, I know that William Ruto is still very committed to this, despite warnings from experts, despite threats from the Haiti gang. Now, the relationship between Ruto and Madam Martha Koome, who is the president of the judiciary is one that is cordial. But there are other judges who are defiant, and they have decided that they will take no instruction from anybody. And they have always expressed their independent minds, guided by the penal courts. But I'm afraid, because if you look at Judge Thande, who first ruled against William Ruto's housing agenda, the judge was transferred from Nairobi to Malindi. And then there is Judge Nyotu, who condemned the manner in which Ruto's institutions, of course the institutions should be independent, but they are not. An institution like the Department of Public Prosecution was accused of aiding corruption in the country, sabotaging the very cases that this office is supposed to aid so that Kenyans can get maybe money that was lost. Judge Nyotu said that this very office is acting in a manner that is trying to sabotage a process. That was in the ruling of the former Treasury boss, Henry Rotich. That judge was transferred from Nairobi to Keroka. And this is why I feel that when they go to the appellate court, the judge that will handle this case will be prevailed upon in any way possible so that he allows this process. Because when Judge Mwita ruled, he said that there must be an agreement signed between the two countries. But then he said, even if there is an agreement, we can only export soldiers, defense forces, and not the police. So Ruto rushed to sign a deal between him and Oriol Henry. I don't know whether that deal is still valid now that Oriol is not there. They might call it government to government so that they still say that it is Haiti government and Kenyan government. So William Ruto will not allow any kind of court verdict to stand between him and the money, to stand between him and his bosses, because this will be humiliation that a court of justice would deny him a chance to serve his masters, because USA is their masters. Ladies and gentlemen, what do you think? Do you think William Ruto will allow this? And I'll not be surprised if Judge Mwita is also transferred. I'll not be surprised to see breaking news that during the appellate session, they have allowed Ruto to continue with exporting 1,000 policemen. We pray for them, because someone was saying today that there is another batch that has already gone there secretly, but those are rumors, I can't confirm. We wait and see how things are going to transpire.